This is Donald Trump's worst nightmare, the FIFA World Cup, which is set to take place in just a few weeks in the United States, also in Canada and Mexico. It's turning out to be a massive disaster. Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino, who's the president of FIFA, they've basically destroyed the FIFA World Cup. Donald Trump has perverted it and made it so odd, and Donald Trump's catastrophic war in Iran and his wars around the world have caused a massive boycott of FIFA tourism.
It's next conquest. We're doing this again? He talks about war like he's bragging about women with Billy Bush. This is not something we're... And in case you're wondering, America is back. That's right. Just like the McRib, and available for a limited time. So what he's saying is we've won the war. We achieved all our objectives, but we're still going to send a team to negotiate those objectives. And the strait is open, but also closed. It's like having a magic 8-ball as president of the United States. Will we annihilate a civilization?
Keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million.
Tonight, we have to talk about something bigger than one joke, bigger than one monologue, bigger than one late-night feud. Because what you are watching right now is not just Donald Trump getting roasted on television. You are watching a president who cannot control the narrative anymore, and the more that slips away from him, the more he lashes out, the more vindictive he gets, and the more obvious it becomes that what really rattles him is not a policy debate, not a serious press conference, not even a courtroom filing. What rattles him is ridicule. What rattles him is when the performance breaks down. What rattles him is when millions of people sit at home and watch Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel turn his bluster into a punchline, his contradictions into a montage, and his strongman image into something far weaker, a man who needs constant adoration and cannot handle mockery. That is the real story here, and it is grounded in a very real set of events. Kimmel has spent the past 2 weeks unloading on Trump in monologues about Trump's Iran rhetoric, his insane posting spree.
Summer. With no World Cup. So if there was no World Cup, the typical tourism and the typical hotel bookings in these cities, I'm giving you major metropolitan areas, Philly, Boston, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, would be more than it is right now with FIFA. Like, do we all realize what a stunning stat that is? But Gianni Infantino says there may be a last-minute influx, like a miracle right around the corner. Just you wait and see. There may be a miracle coming, right? Aren't these all just MAGA con artists right here?
Ask again later. And also, it's not a war, it's an operation. It's not just an operation, it's Operation Epic Fury, which they should change that, and I should drop the RY and just make it Operation FU, because that's what it is. Formal peace talks are expected to begin on Saturday in Pakistan. The United States will be represented in these talks by J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. Trump sent Jared so he could have some alone time with Ivanka over the weekend. But the reason Trump sends his son-in-law, who has no official position in our government...
Huge licensing fees in international jurisdictions. So they're basically saying, look, India...
His demand that taxpayers fund a White House ballroom, and his demand that ABC fire Kimmel himself. Colbert, meanwhile, has used recent monologues to hammer Trump's war messaging, his threats toward the press, his ballroom claims, and the economic and political cost of Trump's style of rule. Now let's start with the thing we can verify most clearly, because this is where the Trump goes nuts part stops being metaphor and starts being documented behavior. On April 27th, Trump posted on Truth Social that Jimmy Kimmel should be immediately fired by Disney and ABC after Kimmel's joke about Melania Trump having the glow of an expectant widow. CBS, citing AP, reported that Trump called it a despicable call to violence, even though CBS also noted there was no indication Kimmel was actually referring to violence. Kimmel answered on air by saying the joke was about the Trump's age difference, not assassination, and added that if the White House really wants to lower hateful rhetoric, it might start by talking to Trump himself. That is not a vague internet rumor. That is a verified public clash between a sitting president and a late-night host, carried by CBS AP, and it did not stop there.
For example, if India wants coverage of the World Cup, come up with some joint venture and pay FIFA $100 million. And India was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. How about $20 million? So there was this JV between an Indian company and Disney India's Reliance Disney joint venture goes, we'll make a $20 million offer. We don't think the World Cup is worth $100 million. And now we're weeks away. And normally you would have a licensing deal, I don't know, months ago. But FIFA hasn't made a licensing deal with India. Not only that, it hasn't made a licensing deal with China yet. And China's flexing its muscle and saying, we're not going to pay you what you want, FIFA. India's flexing its muscle and saying, we're not going to pay you what you're demanding. And these are massive markets, right? There has been no deal announcement for China, which FIFA says accounts for 49.8% of all hours of viewing on digital and social platforms globally during the 2022 World Cup. Let that sink in right here.
Dr. King himself.
The next day, the FCC ordered Disney to file early renewal applications for its ABC stations years ahead of schedule. CBS reported that the order came one day after Trump called for Kimmel to be fired. The FCC said the step related to an already open investigation into Disney's DEI practices, but the timing triggered immediate concern because broadcast license pressure coming right after a president demanded punishment for a comedian looks at minimum politically ugly. Disney said ABC had a long record of FCC compliance. The National Association of Broadcasters warned the move created uncertainty for all broadcasters. And Jamil Jaffer of the Knight First Amendment Institute told CBS the FCC does not have authority to cancel licenses over perceived political views. Whether one sees the timing as retaliation or coincidence, the sequence is real, and it is exactly why this story matters. It is not just about bruised feelings. It is about a president using power-adjacent pressure while publicly raging at a TV host who mocked him. That is the Kimmel side of the story. On the Colbert side, the dynamic is a little different, but no less revealing. Stephen Colbert has been relentless in recent monologues. The official Late Show YouTube playlist shows recent titles like The True Cost of Trump's War, Iran Mocks America's Wish List.
And so you have that taking place. FIFA also so expensive. You know, like people like in the other host cities, there's not that many games in Mexico and Canada. But take a look at this. Mexico's out-of-reach World Cup tickets cause discontent among fans. Of the 104 matches in this year's World Cup, 4 will be played in Monterrey, 4 in Guadalajara, and 5 in the newly renovated Banorte Stadium in Mexico City, including the opening match between Mexico and South Africa. When FIFA released a second round of tickets in April, prices for the first game in Mexico on June 11th ranged from $3,000 to $10,000. The sky-high ticket costs are unaffordable for most Mexicans, who basically earn an average monthly income of about $1,000. And when people are saying this, it doesn't feel the same as the previous 2 World Cups. This World Cup basically belongs to the United States. It doesn't feel Mexican. That's how it feels to me because even ticket prices are out of reach for everyone.
Official position in our government is because he was the guy in charge of brokering peace between Israel and Palestine a few years back, and that turned out great. Trump is funny because he keeps claiming we won this easily. We won it, but he's furious with our allies in NATO for not jumping in to help open the strait. He had a 2-hour chat with the head of NATO yesterday that did not go well, according to the people who were in the meeting. They said it was nothing but a tirade of insults. And the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, this guy's had enough. After the ceasefire agreement, he said the government of Spain will not applaud those who set the world on fire.
Presidential fitness, Trump plans revenge on the press, and a little earlier, Iran to Trump. You're losing. Those titles matter because they are not isolated jabs. They tell you what Colbert thinks the public weakness is. Trump overpromises, improvises, threatens, gets boxed in by reality, and then tries to punish the people who point it out. And there is historical context here, too. When CBS canceled The Late Show in July 2025, AP-PBS reported it would end in May 2026, taking off the air one of Trump's most prominent late-night critics. Trump then publicly gloated about Colbert's cancellation and took swipes at other hosts. So even if I cannot verify that Trump issued a fresh same-day rage post specifically about one of Colbert's latest monologues, I can verify the broader pattern. Colbert has kept hitting Trump hard, and Trump has a recent documented history of attacking or gloating over Colbert when the opportunity presents itself. And here is why those two lanes merge into one political story. Kimmel and Colbert are not mocking Trump for no reason. They are both pulling from the same underlying material: Trump's handling of Iran, his contradictory public messaging, his endless social media theatrics, his obsession with vanity projects, and his urge to turn every criticism into a loyalty test or a punishment campaign. The official Kimmel monologue playlist over the last days includes titles like,
So where this is supposed to be a celebration of, was supposed to be a celebration of Canada, the United States, Mexico, right? The people who are part of the USMCA, or the Canada-Mexico-US agreement. Donald Trump wants to make this about him, and the ticket prices are just completely out of control right now as well. And, we're seeing this as well. FIFA ramps up efforts to sell luxury World Cup hospitality tickets after what they're calling a revenue reevaluation. And so FIFA is upping efforts to sell luxury hospitality tickets for the World Cup, with packages still available for 102 of the 104 matches at the expanded tournament. Mexico's Group A against South Korea and one last 32 fixture expected to feature Spain are the only matches showing a lack of availability on FIFA's hospitality platform. A new category of suite essentials has been added to lower profile games, allowing customers to buy an individual ticket for a suite that would previously have been sold to a group. The Guardian understands the intensified activity follows a downward reevaluation by FIFA and its partner on location of the revenue expected from most lucrative ticket.
On war damage control. Trump threatens Iran with intense bombing. Trump now wants Americans to pay for his ballroom. Trump's insane posting spree lies about war. And Donald Trump attacks Jimmy Kimmel again and wants him fired soon. Colbert's recent titles mirror those same pressure points, with monologues about Trump's war, Trump's revenge on the press, and Trump's economic and political contradictions. When two of the biggest late-night hosts are independently landing on the same story architecture, that usually means the target is supplying an enormous amount of usable material all by himself. And that is the thing about Trump that late night has always understood better than a lot of straight news coverage. The core vulnerability is not just that he lies, or that he is authoritarian, or that he is impulsive. The vulnerability is that his political model depends on spectacle, and comedy is the one medium that can puncture spectacle instantly. When Trump stands in front of cameras and says one thing on Monday, then a different thing on Tuesday, then posts a dozen angry messages by Wednesday, a late-night host can condense all of that into 90 seconds and make the contradiction feel obvious. That is why he hates it. It is not because Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert are changing policy. It is because they expose the weakness in the brand. They show that the strong leader persona collapses the moment you line up the clips. Take the Iran coverage. Kimmel's recent monologues have focused on Trump's war damage control, on Trump threatening intense bombing, and on Trump's lies about the war.
So these luxury boxes and these luxury experiences in 102 of the 104 games are basically not selling anything. People don't want to spend $20, $10, $15, $30,000 on this. And not only that, but you have FIFA struggling to sell tickets to the first U.S. game when the United States men's national team opens the World Cup versus Paraguay. You would think, wow, in the U.S. versus Paraguay. Clearly that's going to be sold out, you would expect, right? Nope. Ticket sales for the United States high-priced World Cup opener are lagging behind other matches in Los Angeles, according to a document distributed to local organizers and a variety of other indicators. The document, dated April 10th and shared with hosts to ensure adequate planning, listed 40,934 tickets purchased for that June 12th match between the U.S. and Paraguay, compared with 50,661 for the Iran-New Zealand match 3 days later. Let me repeat, more people are excited to see Iran play New Zealand in the United States than to watch the United States versus Paraguay. But guess what? The stadium's capacity is 69,650 for the World Cup. 69,650 seats, only 40,934 seats sold for that first game, with U.S. versus Paraguay, 50,661 sold for Iran versus New Zealand.
Colbert's recent monologues have focused on the true cost of Trump's war, on Iran mocking America's demands, and on Trump's claims that he has all the cards. The Guardian's late-night roundups show the same thing from an outside source. Kimmel, Colbert, and Seth Meyers all mock Trump's war rhetoric, gas price fallout, and the absurdity of trying to downplay the seriousness of the conflict while the costs were climbing. So when people ask why late night is all over Trump right now, the answer is simple. Because he keeps giving them material that is both consequential and ridiculous at the same time. A war crisis is serious. A president talking about it incoherently, threatening bombing, and then acting as if the fallout is trivial is also darkly comic. Late night lives in that gap. And then there is the ballroom. You want to understand why these monologues hit so hard? Because this is exactly the kind of detail that turns Trump from commander into punchline. Colbert was recently ripping into Trump over his ballroom financing claims after Trump had publicly said the ballroom would not cost taxpayers anything and then faced criticism as the price ballooned and public financing entered the discussion. The Daily Beast summarized Colbert's point bluntly. Colbert called Trump's claims BS and mocked the obvious contradiction between what Trump had promised and what the public was now being asked to swallow. Kimmel has gone after the same story with recent monologue titles about Trump wanting Americans to pay for his ballroom. Again, the issue is bigger than one building. The issue is that even in the middle of geopolitical tension, Trump keeps circling back to vanity, image, decor, and self-celebration. That is not late-night distortion.
This is the World Cup. It's like saying the 104 Super Bowls, yet there's over 10-20% of there's going to be empty seats, or they're going to have to lower the prices. And then you have this article from the LA Times. Fans vent frustration over high World Cup ticket prices for worse seats. And it talks about the story. Aaron Levinson wanted to go to a World Cup game this summer, but he didn't want to take out a second mortgage to pay for that. So after winning a chance to spend $560 for individual tickets in a FIFA lottery last fall, Levinson backed out. Then he backed in again this spring. Maybe the sticker shock kind of started wearing off. I got caught up in the excitement. So Levinson decided to pluck down $850 for 2 Category 3 tickets, among the cheapest available for he and his wife to go to the final U.S. group play game at SoFi Stadium in June. When his wife reminded him that his 2 sons would be visiting, he bought 2 more tickets, bringing his investment to $1,700, more than double the price of a 7-day cruise. And it goes on to say,
just because they show up with a bucket, that is not going to go over not too bueno with. But it's hard for Trump to retaliate against Spain because the only oil he can take from them is those little tins of anchovies, So this war has not done much for Trump's approval rating. According to The Economist, his popularity is somewhere between Bill Cosby and strangers clipping their toenails in public right now. Only 37% approve of Trump. 56% disapprove, 7% are not sure. I don't know who those people are, but they need to get their acts together. And you want to know where Trump's most unpopular?
Election.
So what kind of economic growth number would you expect for 26 and beyond then? Let's assume that we do get out of this war fairly soon. What kind of GDP growth number would you expect for the U.S. economy?
Yeah, and that's the thing that we've been working a lot on lately because of the capital spending boom. Remember that in March, capital spending went up by 3.3%, not at an annual rate. So multiply that by 12, and you're looking at historic capital spending numbers because President Trump, with his tax cuts, which are in getting people to expense, but also onshoring activity, is giving us a capital spending boom unlike anything we've ever seen. If you look at how
That is the public record of what he chooses to emphasize. And every time those contradictions get spotlighted, Trump responds the way he always does. Not by correcting, not by clarifying, not by laughing it off like a normal politician, but by escalating, demanding firings, smearing hosts, trying to make criticism look like violence, trying to make satire look like incitement, trying to turn his own inability to take a joke into proof that the country is unfair to him. That was on full display in the CBS AP reporting on Kimmel. Trump framed the joke as a call to violence. Kimmel answered that it was plainly not that, and CBS noted there was no indication it was actually about violence. That is a key fact because it shows the pattern. Trump takes a hostile joke, recasts it as something sinister, and then demands institutional punishment. That is not strength. That is fragility with power attached to it. And let's stop here for a second because this is the part viewers need to understand. When a president goes after comedians, that is not the whole story. Presidents getting mocked is normal, But when that same president is also pressuring institutions, cheering regulatory heat, or benefiting from regulatory scrutiny landing right after his public demands, that is where the story becomes democratic, not just cultural. CBS reported the early renewal FCC order. Industry and First Amendment voices immediately objected to the implications. Senate Democrats, as The Guardian later reported, explicitly argued the pressure on ABC looked retaliatory and raised First Amendment concerns. So this is no longer just Trump doesn't like Jimmy Kimmel.
And that doesn't include the nearly $250 for parking. That's really steep, said Levinson, a Galaxy season ticket holder for more than a decade. But when are we going to get to go to another World Cup? This was special until it wasn't. Levinson bought the tickets without knowing where the seats would be. But when he saw a color-coded seat map of SoFi, it showed Category 3 sections were in corners of the top deck, far closer to the stadium's translucent roof than the playing field. Maybe the cruise would have been a better idea after all. I don't know if disappointed is the right word. It's just bizarre. I like to sit in a certain spot. I like the sideline. I don't want to be behind the goal. I just feel like for the price I paid, at least I can know where the seats are going to be. And he's hardly the only person unhappy with their experience buying tickets for this World Cup. That may explain why tickets reportedly remain available for more than a third of the 72 group stage games, and many of the expensive hospitality packages also remain unsold. And that is raising worries FIFA may have priced the World Cup so beyond the reach of many fans that some matches will be played before empty seats, despite the fact that FIFA president Gianni Infantino told CNBC that all 104 games were sold out. FIFA later clarified that statement, saying Infantino meant to say that he expected the games would sell out. Either way, concerns about empty seats may be overblown since the fourth and final phase of ticket sales don't begin until April 1, and the tournament organizers are confident demand will match inventory.
This is Trump doesn't like Jimmy Kimmel, publicly demands he be punished, and then a federal regulator makes a highly unusual move against Kimmel's corporate parent. That is the sort of pattern every democracy-minded viewer should be paying attention to. Now some Trump defenders will say, late night is biased. Of course, Kimmel and Colbert attack him. Fine, they are comedians with opinions. Nobody disputes that. But bias is not the same thing as fabrication. The question is whether they are working from real material. And in this case, the answer is yes. Kimmel's recent titles are based on real public events. Trump's Iran rhetoric, Trump's social media posting, Trump's public demand that ABC fire him, and Trump's ballroom push. Colbert's recent titles are likewise rooted in real things.
Although now we know in May that that is not the case. And of course, we know with the boycott, the regional instability, Trump's catastrophic war against the world, Donald Trump's tariffs against the world, that we're seeing the massive retaliation and backlash. Few other points I want to point out. Obviously, you know about Infantino giving Donald Trump a fake FIFA Peace Prize. Like that's what they were focused on versus selling tickets. I mean, you remember this weird moment? Play this clip.
This is your Peace Prize. There is also a beautiful medal for you that you can wear everywhere you want to go.
I'm gonna wear it right now.
Okay, let me hold. Fantastic. Excellent.
And then there was this moment where Infantino tried to he called up the head of the Palestinian Football Association and the Israel Football Association. And then in front of everybody, he tried to force the Palestinian Football Association person to shake the hands of the Israeli Football Association. And he wanted to capture this on camera and act like he was bringing world peace. And then the Palestinian Football Association person was like, why, what do you want me to do? What's this about? You expect me to do that? While they're destroying Gaza, that's what you expect me to do? And the whole thing was strange. I mean, do you remember this? Here, play this.
In the very place where he lives, Washington, D.C., his net approval rating is negative 80 points. The closer you get to him, the lower it goes. It's in his bedroom, 0. He is at a 0 approval rating. Speaking of his bedroom, there was a big surprise from the White House today, even to Donald Trump. Melania emerged from the rubble of the East Wing.
Trump's threats, Trump's war messaging, Trump's antagonism toward the press, and the public cost of his policy choices. You do not have to agree with every punchline to see that the underlying subjects are real. In fact, one of the reasons the ridicule is landing so hard is because Trump himself has made the comic framing easier. Kimmel's recent official titles refer to an insane posting spree, to Trump saying crazy stuff to kids in the Oval Office, and to Trump attacking Kimmel again. Colbert's titles refer to presidential fitness, Trump plans revenge on the press, and the true cost of Trump's war. These are not subtle cues. They are broadcasting a theme. This is a presidency of grievance, performance, revenge, and self-infantilization. And viewers respond to that because it matches what they have seen. The best comedy does not invent a reality. It sharpens one already sitting in front of us. That is why Trump's reaction matters so much. If he were secure, he would brush it off. If he were disciplined, he would ignore it. If he were actually confident in his presidency, he would let the comics talk and move on to governing. But instead, he repeatedly elevates them. He has a
Donald Trump is losing his mind on Mother's Day Sunday. Of course, no messages from Donald Trump on Sunday about Mother's Day. Instead, he's posting photos of the reflecting pool with some weird AI, and it has this weird blue glow to it. He's posting videos of Iran from early January for reasons that are unclear. He's posting videos of Israel's foreign minister praising him. He also gave an interview that was posted this morning from some far right-wing media entity that I never heard of, where Donald Trump didn't even remember that he and Elon Musk were talking about exposing all of the gold in Fort Knox and returning into the people. And he's like, yeah, I don't remember that. What's the whole Fort Knox thing that I said? Donald Trump also says that babies get these massive vats of vaccine.
documented record of doing it with Kimmel this month, and a documented record of celebrating Colbert's cancellation last year. That tells you something important. He sees them as threats, not policy threats, narrative threats. They reach millions of people in a form that bypasses his usual defenses. They make him look small, not scary. They make his contradictions memorable. They turn his anger into content that spreads beyond cable, beyond newspapers, beyond political junkies, and into mainstream culture. And that is where this whole story starts connecting to something deeper about authoritarian politics. Authoritarian personalities do not just want obedience. They want emotional control over the public space. They want fear. They want deference. They want everyone around them to behave as though the image they project is reality itself. Comedy is one of the few things that can break that spell quickly. The joke says, actually, no. Actually, this man is not omnipotent. Actually, this speech is absurd. Actually, this contradiction is visible. Actually, this emperor is not wearing clothes. He is wearing makeup, posting through the night and demanding $1 billion ballroom while threatening war. And that is why late-night ridicule has always gotten under Trump's skin more than straight reporting.
Better, Donald Trump has also sent his stooges out to the various corporate news networks this morning to do the morning shows. And they're all out there saying, we expect right around the corner for there to be 6% GDP growth. Everything's going to be amazing. And if it isn't amazing, it's going to be the fault of the blue states. They're going to be the ones to blame for it. And the only reason why former President Biden created all of these jobs is because the illegal aliens got all of the jobs. So there wasn't really a manufacturing boom. It was all the illegal aliens. It's just lie after lie. Oh, and then Sebastian Gorka, this far right-wing extremist, in my opinion, he gave an interview and he said, so why haven't the Iranians responded or surrendered or backed down? And Gorka, who's one of Donald Trump's top people, dealing with international affairs, which is absolutely horrifying. He goes, the reason is because we've just been too
She brushed the drywall off her business suit and delivered a doozy of a prepared statement demanding that we stop talking about something no one was talking about.
Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
Okay, how about tomorrow? Because I'm just now hearing about these lies. Could you give me Like a minute to catch up. You know, somewhere in the White House, Trump, he saw this happening. He spit out a whole gallon of Diet Coke. And
Straight reporting can be dismissed as partisan. A joke that everyone gets in 3 seconds is much harder to shake. There is another layer here too, and it matters for how this should be narrated in a political video. You do not want to oversell what late night can do. Kimmel and Colbert are not single-handedly bringing down Trump. They are not replacing journalism. They are not courtroom witnesses. What they are doing is translating a lot of complex public evidence into mass audience clarity. Kimmel takes Trump's ranting and turns it into a caricature of instability. Colbert takes Trump's contradictions and turns them into a running theme of weakness, vanity, and revenge. The comedians are not the source of Trump's problems. They are a mirror for them. The source is Trump's own conduct, and if you look at the structure of recent Kimmel and Colbert material, you can see exactly why Trump is losing this fight. Kimmel is blending 3 things: national stakes, personal absurdity, and direct pushback. 1 minute it is Iran, the next minute it is the ballroom. Then it is Trump trying to get Kimmel fired. Colbert is doing something similar: war, press revenge, taxpayer burden, and presidential incoherence. That combination is lethal for a politician like Trump because it denies him the one defense he relies on most: compartmentalization. He wants supporters to treat every scandal as separate.
In the war, like we've been too successful, and because we're so successful, Iran doesn't even know like who their leadership is, and is this person the leader, is that person the leader? So it takes them really long for them to get back to us. I mean, it's just lie after lie while the American people are suffering on this catastrophic Sunday. Thankfully, it is Mother's Day, where we get to spend time with our families and reflect on the backbone of our families, our mothers. Happy Mother's Day to all. But you just see the behavior of this sick and disgusting regime. Let's just go through it one by one, and I'll show you what the Iranians are posting this morning. Then I'll show you the Trump regime's responses. So one of Iran's top leaders, the spokesperson for their National Security and Foreign Policy Commission in the parliament, spokesperson for one of their top leaders, posted the following message. As of today, our restraint is over. Any aggression against our vessels will be met with a heavy and decisive Iranian response against American vessels and bases. The clock is ticking against the Americans' interest. It is to their benefit not to act foolishly and sink themselves deeper into the quagmire they have fallen into. The best course is to surrender and concede concessions. You must get used to this new regional order. Also, the Iranian army told their Tasnim news agency, that's their state-run agency, if the enemy attacks Iran again, it will face new and more advanced equipment, new methods of warfare, and most importantly, new arenas of war. This means that the war will enter the areas that the enemy has not anticipated or included in its.
Kimmel and Colbert collapse them into one story. The story becomes, this is a chaotic, self-involved, retaliatory presidency. Once that frame takes hold, every new event reinforces it. You can even see that in how outside outlets summarize the late-night cycle. The Guardian reported that Kimmel mocked Trump's list of threats getting longer, his bizarre Vatican-adjacent theater, and his shifting war rhetoric, while Colbert mocked the price and funding contradictions around the ballroom and the administration's broader messaging failures. These were not fringe bloggers. These were roundups of what mainstream late night was doing with mainstream political news. That matters because it shows the material had enough public salience to spill beyond the shows themselves and become part of the general political conversation. And then there is the issue of timing. Trump is already under pressure on substance. Foreign policy pressure, messaging pressure, questions about priorities, questions about erratic public communication. In that environment, the last thing he needs is 2 top late-night hosts turning him into a recurring symbol of insecurity. But instead of shrinking the story, he inflates it. By demanding Kimmel be fired, he made the Kimmel jokes bigger. By turning the matter into a First Amendment and FCC story, he gave critics a much broader argument. By historically gloating over Colbert, he reminded everyone how personal this is for him. That is why this video angle works. Not because one joke broke Trump, but because Trump keeps proving the joke is getting to him.
This is already better than her movie. Go on, please.
I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach.
and everywhere. I love how she keeps calling him Epstein like it's an episode of Welcome Back, Kotter or something. And why is this happening today? He spent the past 6 weeks trying to bomb this Epstein story out of the headlines.
If you've been watching the Midas Touch Network, you know that we think we know what they're hinting at. The cables underneath the Strait of Hormuz, they're just going to cut it and they're going to destroy it. And that will basically bring down the data centers and internet in the Middle East, which connects to a broader grid of internet throughout the world. And then you have the ambassador from Iran to Pakistan, who actually tends to be a very kind of tempered, even-keeled guy who's really been pushing for diplomacy. He responded to Donald Trump's social media post where Trump does these AI images of himself watching as Iranian boats are destroyed, like a delusional fantasy of Donald Trump. And his name is Reza Amiri Magdam. And here's what he posts. A trigger-happy bravado with brinksmanship approach and a ballyhoo and hula-baloo in the ivory tower of hallucinatory charlatanism bears nothing than tension and escalation. This is not the way diplomacy works. And the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, who, by the way, is a world-renowned cardiologist. I mean, he's a surgeon. And just an interesting fact about him. He writes, "We will never bow our heads before the enemy. And if talk of dialogue or negotiations arises, it does not mean surrender or retreat. Rather, the goal is to uphold the rights of the Iranian nation and to defend national interests with resolute strength." So that's what they're saying. On the other hand, what is Donald Trump saying? Well, Donald Trump posted this right-wing media interview. And in this interview, the person says, "So what happened to your audit of Fort Knox? Didn't you and Elon Musk say you were going to hand out all this gold to people in addition to Doge dividend checks?" Watch Donald Trump's response.
And I want to be careful here, because this is where lesser channels go sloppy. There is no need to invent a secret panic meeting or claim Trump was literally watching Colbert and Kimmel cry in the residence. The verified story is strong enough. Trump and Melania publicly demanded Kimmel be fired. Kimmel publicly hit back. The FCC made a highly unusual move right after that. Colbert has kept blasting Trump in monologues centered on war, revenge, and public cost. Trump has a known pattern of obsessing over late-night hosts and a recent history of gloating at Colbert's misfortune. You do not need fake details when the real pattern is this blatant. So what is the takeaway? The takeaway is that Trump's battle with late night is really a battle with humiliation. It is a battle with any public arena he cannot fully dominate. He can bully a press secretary. He can flood social media. He can demand loyalty from a network. He can posture at rallies. But on a comedy monologue, all of that gets boiled down to the one thing he cannot stand.
Here, let's play this clip. The guy is a massive con artist. More from that interview, because I showed you what the Iranians are doing this morning. What's Donald Trump doing? He's talking about little babies, and it's so damn creepy. Here's what Donald Trump says. Let's play. And then
instead of with him, that is the part that makes him go nuts, in the only sense we can verify responsibly. He escalates. He demands punishment. He treats jokes like existential threats. And in doing so, he confirms the core criticism Kimmel and Colbert are making. That beneath the performance of toughness is a profoundly insecure man who cannot tolerate mockery in a free society. That is also why this matters beyond entertainment. In a democracy, satire is supposed to be safe. Presidents do not get to use regulatory shadows, public office pressure, or reputational muscle to scare comics into submission. They certainly do not get to redefine ordinary political jokes as violence whenever their feelings are hurt. Once that line starts moving, the country gets smaller, the public space gets colder, and the message to every critic becomes obvious. Ridicule power at your own risk. Whether or not that is Trump's explicit theory, it is the effect his behavior points toward, and that is why it deserves to be called out. So yes, the fair, fact-checked version of this story is powerful enough on its own. Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert have spent recent weeks tearing into Trump over war, vanity, revenge, and incoherence.
And then Donald Trump sends out his sycophants on the various morning shows. And for example, you hear from Kevin Hassett, Donald Trump's national economic advisor. And this guy's been wrong about everything his whole life. And he goes, right around the corner, I think we're going to hit 6% GDP growth, 6% GDP. The fourth quarter of last year's GDP growth was only about 0.5%. But sure, go and keep on lying. Here, play this clip.
2 days after the ceasefire, she puts it right back on top. She must really hate him. I don't know how else to explain it. So then a reporter gets hold of Trump, calls his phone. He says, I didn't know anything about this statement Melania made. He didn't know she was going to do it before she did it, which shows you just how smoothly things are running over there. For whatever reason, she didn't ask. She didn't give him a heads up. She just went right out in front of the cameras and fired away.
Donald Trump is bragging about stopping 8 wars. He said, I stopped 8 wars, and the economy has never been booming more than it is booming right now. Everybody is thriving. Here's what he has to say. Let's play it.
Has demonstrably lashed out at Kimmel in public and has a recent pattern of taking pleasure in Colbert's setbacks. The regulatory timing around ABC raised serious press freedom concerns. And the more Trump tries to crush the ridicule, the more he proves that the ridicule is landing exactly where it hurts. That is the real political DNA of this moment. Not just Trump got roasted, not just late night made fun of him again, but Trump's compulsion to retaliate against mockery is itself becoming one of the clearest public proofs of his weakness. And that is the narration I would run with. 2 of the biggest late-night hosts in America keep hammering Trump on the same vulnerabilities. Trump cannot let it go. Instead of acting like a confident president, he reaches for punishment and grievance, and every time he does it, he hands them another monologue. That is the trap. He is not shutting them down. He is feeding them. He is not reasserting dominance. He is confirming their thesis, and that is why this fight keeps getting worse for him every time he opens his mouth.